Good evening, Cebu. Good evening, Philippines. It's open mic night once again, and tonight we are privileged to have the 12th President of the Republic of the Philippines, His Excellency, President Fidel Ramos. President Ramos, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mike, for your warm welcome, and
Thank you for accepting our invitation.
I'm delighted to be back here in Cebu,
Welcome back.
where I used to be assigned.
Yes, you were here for 1 year, no? In the
69 to 70,
1969.
and this is where I became general for the first time.
Wow. So it's not only you're not the only president who finds finds Cebu very memorable.
Well, I am fortunate in knowing the early history of Cebu in the last 3 decades, and I am amazed at the progress that it has made, and you all deserve congratulations.
We will have more progress if what you're pushing for, federalism, comes to pass, no? But let's talk about federalism later. There are issues that are hot off the press. Before you flew in yesterday, it was a very busy day for our media organizations because our presidential candidates, at least 2 of them, made the headlines today. Let's start with the disqualification of Senator Grace Poe. She was disqualified, or her COC was nullified by the 2nd Division of the COMELEC. And they say there's still hope in the Commission on Bank and in the Supreme Court. What are your thoughts about this development?
That is legally correct.
Alright.
And the Supreme Court, of course, will be the final arbiter. And since this is a very unique case, it's the first one that I know of that the Supreme Court will be ruling on. The deliberations, I'm sure, will be very, very thorough. And as
Have you studied the merits of the case, sir?
No, not really, because although I was a presidential candidate myself, wala akong problema. I didn't have any problem of that kind.
That's right.
But in this particular case, as I said, this is trend setting.
But do you think it was right that she was disqualified
At that level.
at that level?
At that level, because really, it was just a matter of arithmetic. In the higher level, meaning in bank for the COMELEC and the Supreme Court itself, well, there you get into some more national and even global aspects of the problem.
But would you prefer, setting aside whatever technicalities, would you prefer that Grace Poe be able to run as president?
Yes, because a long time ago, I maintained that we must go for the younger ones.
Yes.
Not her necessarily or personally, but if we look around the world, we will find that in the more advanced countries, like those in Europe that are under the parliamentary system, the leaders are young people.
So if she is successful in this string of cases, disqualification cases against her, she would be the youngest candidate.
No, not automatically, because in Europe, where they are mostly under the parliamentary system, the new lawmaker elected at age 25 becomes also, because that is the system,
No, but what I mean,
an executive.
but
And
she
this is where some of our people, because of our US-style parliamentary or presidential system, lack the training and the experience. But we must make sure that the young people are given a chance in this country. But they must be sure also to acquire early as possible the training in personnel management, budget implementation, and personal relations, and national economy.
let's
The
talk
world
about,
is getting too small now. We must realize that this is not local anymore.
you talk about experience, no, in governance. One candidate who made the headlines today is one who's very experienced in local governance, in executive governance, but he drew flack from some netizens I'm talking about Davao City Mayor Rodrigo Duterte because of his speech where he said,
I know him very well.
I know.
In
I
fact,
saw.
he's my good friend and fellow golfer. But
What do you say? What do you say to this controversy that he's embroiled in? That he
no,
cursed
let
at the
me
Pope?
finish. I can do 35. He can do 30.
Hashtag do 30. Okay.
Kaya natin to.
So going back, President Ramos, what do you think about this controversy? People say that it was not becoming. It was unbecoming of him.
If you are talking about his language and his unique approach to certain issues like crime or
But was it right?
extracurricular activities,
Yes. Okay.
I think wherever you are, whatever creed you may belong to, let us all pay respect to the Holy Father. I'm not a Catholic.
Yes. And
but,
you hosted the a predecessor, Pope John Paul, who is now a saint.
Of course, during his time, and
you were
during that time, there were many threats against him personally by the Al Qaeda, and we caught the Al Qaeda cell in Manila,
I remember that.
and all that intelligence information was used by the U.S. against that organization. But unfortunately, the U.S. was not able to use our information properly because they could have prevented 9/11 or at least minimized it.
And because we had
6 years later.
information.
Magaling tayo dyan sa intelligence.
Especially you, because you're a West Point graduate.
No, it's not that. I'm an intelligence officer. And you can be from the San Carlos ROTC in Cebu. If you learn enough intelligence work, you'll be as good as anybody in that job.
Even someone from West Point.
They're also like that.
So you think it was not right for him to say that, but you think it's something you can overlook?
No, we cannot overlook it, but I'm glad that he has immediately apologized and tried to make amends, and also indicating that he has grounds for complaints about some of the clergy where he comes from during his early age.
That was a revelation.
Yes.
Did you know about that before, or did you
No,
just
I
learn
read
about
the
it?
newspapers.
Pero there's another candidate. Let's talk about your former rival in 1992, Senator Miriam Santiago.
No, wait. You must remember there were 7 of us in that 1992 presidential election.
Yes.
6 of them were heavyweights in politics, and I was the only amateur in politics. But fortunately, and thanks to all of you here in Cebu especially, I won here. Thank you for your support. Maybe that was because of my vice presidential candidate, former Cebu Governor Lito Osmeña. Wow, I wish he had won. He might still be president at this time
That's right.
because of the kind of succession that we have.
But a lot of people are really somehow enthralled, by this rivalry between you and Senator Santiago. Have you ever crossed paths with her?
Oh yes.
Was there ever a time that you spoke after the 1992 elections?
I think it was in a tailor shop. And I think we were both incumbents. At that time,
You were president,
sometime before 1998, she was
Senator.
an elected senator and I was still president. And we were together in a tailor shop which we both patronized. I was having a cup of coffee and she was dealing with the tailor. And of course, we greeted each other
Oh.
cordially.
You did. Because in her in her pronouncements, she seemed like she was ready to eat someone.
Well, for me, having been the winner of that contest, my attitude has always been to bring everybody together. Because that is the job of a president when newly elected. You must campaign all over the country again to put all of the citizens together to support the government, because the Philippines must be seen as only one team, especially now, because there is so much disunity in the Philippines today, and that's bad in terms of our international competence. Look at our ranking now. We are number 117 in the United Nations ranking for human development out of 195. We used to be in the upper half before. Is this what we want? To be in the Colelat position? I don't think so. Not for you here in Cebu. Because we are talented. But maybe Cebu is even more talented than most other Filipinos.
I think so, too.
According to the Cebuanos.
Yes, that's what we believe. We'll talk about the Ramos presidency and your vision for Philippines 2000 when Open Mic returns after this break. We're back here on Open Mic with President Ramos. So, Mr. President, when you were president from
Mike, please call me Express Phil. Because Mr. President, there is an incumbent. Baka tayo ikulong eh. Express Phil, you reverse it a little, it reads Philippine Express. Go, go, go. That's the way we should be. Now, X, I prefer that to most because X, but not yet excess. X, but not yet expired.
All right.
And this is the best. Wait,
Is that-
X, but now X rated. Yeah. This
Bakit
day
tayo
we should be.
kukulungin? Speaking of kulong po, let's go to, before I go to Philippines 2000 and your presidency, this current president has refused to convene the Council of State, the composition of which are the past heads of state and government, such as yourself, and former President Estrada and former President Arroyo. Why is that so?
Maybe because it might be embarrassing for him. Because in the Council of State, your former presidents must be there.
That's right.
Plus maybe some others appointed according to the law from the private sector.
That's right.
But one president will always be absent unless you release her from hospital arrest.
Maybe a furlough for the day.
I think the better venue would be the National Security Council,
Okay.
in which the former presidents are ex officio members. But then it's a bigger group where the security, defense, and peace and order experts, whether incumbents or retired officials, plus leaders of the private sector are active members. But you are correct. As far as I know, only one meeting of the National Security Council has ever been convened in the last 5 years. I was there.
One National Security Council, but no Council of State.
None. Because the Council of State is a much more limited
More elite group.
body. And of course, maybe there will only be two of us. Or maybe President Estrada as Mayor of Manila might come in. But we met as National Security Council in January 2013 because of the invitation of Malacanang for the members to listen to the presentation of the Department of Foreign Affairs in regard to the problems of the West China Sea and the South China Sea. It was a very good presentation by Secretary Albert De Rosario, and I voted in favor of it. And that's the same
What did you vote
policy.
in favor? What were you in favor for?
The bringing of the problems to the
To the Hague
ITLOS, or the International Tribunal
on the law.
on the Law of the Sea, which is the one in The Hague right now. And we have won, according to the media reports, the first two rounds. However, we also know that
But China
China
will
has
not.
announced that it will not respect, of course, not implement that United Nations decision, but will just go on continuing
How did you-
unilaterally.
When you were president from 1992 to 1998, there was already this issue of the West Philippine Sea. It was still not called West Philippine Sea at the time, right? It was still addressed by both the Philippines and China as the South China Sea. It was still called that, but there was already there was already a territorial
Yeah, no, the
dispute.
problems were there already, and the first encroachments were into the Paracels Islands, which are north of the Spratlis, where we belong.
That's right.
In fact, there was a war between China and Vietnam. The United Vietnam, which is a communist party or communist country
Like China.
like China, but Vietnam went to war against their bigger brother. That is how unbelief or non-belief exists in our area of Asia about that claim that China owns so much of the South China Sea, West Philippine Sea, or East Philippine Sea as the Vietnamese call it. And therefore, it is correct. In the 21st century, our century, for this matter to be brought up to the international tribunal, for it to be settled properly, because the world is getting too small, dear friends, for countries to be quarreling about these things.
Mr.
Why?
President,
Why? Because the South China Sea and the Pacific are the great oceans of commerce, and they carry between the two of them at least 52% of world commerce.
Wow.
And the Philippines is in the middle. So advantageous, so fortunate for us, especially for the younger Filipinos after you and me.
I'm still young.
Now, having said that, I have always been advocating a cooperative, call it burden sharing use or operations in the two oceans. Meaning, the common enemy of mankind now in the 21st century are universal threats like what's happening in Paris right now.
Terrorism.
Global warming, which causes climate change,
the
which
conference,
causes super typhoons. Also, another kind of enemy are the pandemic diseases like dengue, like malaria, like Ebola, like HIV/AIDS. And we must cooperate together as nations to fight these common enemies of mankind so that mankind will survive on our tiny planet Earth. Then there are the threats of hunger, potable water, energy, infrastructure, access, etc., etc. So, the need for nations now is not to fight each other about this piece of land or that piece of water or this piece of waterway, but we must cooperate so that we can survive here well into the next several hundred generations.
So that is the thrust po of your Ramos Peace and Development Foundation.
Yes, it has always been like that, but call it promoting enduring peace and sustainable development, because the two must go together.
They go hand in hand.
You cannot have sustainable development unless you have peace. It will only be a ceasefire and your project will not last very long. On the same token, you cannot have enduring peace if you do not have sustainable development, because people will not be equal among themselves. Some will be so much more prosperous, the others will be disadvantaged, marginalized, and even very, very poor. So let us become more smart now in this world, especially here starting in Cebu, which is the center of the Philippines. And the Philippines is near the center of the Asia Pacific.
So we are at the center of the center.
Very near the biggest markets of the world. So how lucky can you get? So we, the Filipinos, must play our cards right.
Before we pause for a break po, you talked about peace. Are you for or against the Bangsamoro Basic Law or the BBL?
The BBL, as presented to the House of Representatives, coming from the OPAP, and the Philippine Negotiating Panel, as certified by the President, is full of shortcomings and call it flaws, as already pointed out there in the House of Representatives by the proponents themselves. And our law experts, of course, have also pointed that out. And even the common man, but especially us, the retired military who had been in that kind of a problem, do not think that as it is now, the BBL, as proposed, will easily pass. Just off the top of my mind, I can say that it's not inclusive. Why are the MNLF objecting? Because they were not included in the negotiations.
Do you think it's treasonous? Some quarters say that it's treasonous.
No, that's another matter. But it could be treasonous only if the interests of some other foreign entity would be involved or accommodated in the BBL.
There is talk of Malaysian involvement and Malaysian interest.
Malaysia is involved because they had been the principal foreign
mediator, no?
advisor, consultant, and facilitator in the entire peace process. But it is not automatic that their participation is treasonous. The treason is not on the part of Malaysia.
Yeah.
It is on the part of the Filipinos.
Yeah. More with President Ramos when Open Mic returns from this. We're back here on Open Mic. This is going to be a two-part special because, of course, we are with former President Fidel Ramos. Ex-President. Ex, because he likes X. Sir, let's talk about your vision for Philippines 2000. It's 15 years after the turn of the millennium, the new millennium of, it's not very new anymore because it's 2015. Where are we? Is this where you envisioned us to be when you first assumed office in 1992?
Okay, let's look at Philippines 2000 once more. The simple objective of Philippines 2000 was not for me, neither my political party, to be still in power at that time, which is the beginning of the 21st century, the new century.
Yeah.
But
And the new millennium.
and the new millennium. But we adopted that battle cry because we wanted to make sure that the Filipinos all over the country, rich, young, old, poor, of whatever religious faith, all would be prepared to compete in the new millennium. And therefore, we focused on education. We focused on progress in our basic sectors, especially in agriculture and
Because
in
that is our core.
services and in industry related to our maritime character as a nation. We are now into shipbuilding. We didn't have that before, but we started it here in Cebu.
Cebu, Malamba.
Etc., etc. And therefore, we would be more competitive in the new world. Simply put, I stated that people empowerment, because that is where Philippines 2000 begins, leads to a culture of excellence which will result in global competitiveness. Now, where are we now? Let me mention education. Under this administration, fortunately, we have finally adopted K-12 as our educational policy. You will recall, however, that we tried to put in remedial measures to make sure that our educational policy will be in step with the rest of the world. During my time, we established TESDA,
Oh, it was established.
Technical Education and Development Skills Authority, which is the in-between of high school and college.
And it's helping
And-
a lot of young people now.
Of course.
And speaking of young people,
By
sir,
itself, but by itself, because this has been proven in the German example. They have a 2-year in between high school and college where the young person, boy or girl, must be trained in the practical craftsmanship of all kinds of professions.
That's right.
And that is why their industry is so well advanced.
Speaking of young people, sir, aside from TESDA, it was during your time that the Presidential Council for Youth Affairs became the National Youth Commission pursuant to RA 8044, no? And we are fortunate to have here former commissioner of the National Youth Commission, Joey Boy Hulganza, who was in the first commission with Secretary Amina Rasul. And later on, I was fortunate to also have served there.
I don't know if you ever attended some of our early sessions, but in some of our cabinet meetings, after we established the National Youth Commission, we invited the young commissioners to observe and then even take part in our cabinet meetings.
And sir, not only that, it was, I think, only during your time, correct me if I'm wrong, Commissioner Joey Boy, that it was only during his President Ramos's time that the chairman of the NYC, the chairman and CEO, also was secretary level, cabinet secretary level.
Yes, of course. That was the role of Amina Rasul. She was at cabinet level and was respected as such. Now, I remember one occasion where I asked each of the young people that were present, there are about 20 of them, I asked, how many want to be Secretary of Agriculture in the future? One guy put his hand up, I put him beside Secretary Escudero, the older Escudero, who was Secretary of Agriculture. who wants to be Secretary of Foreign Affairs. I put him aside, Secretary Jun Chiason. Then finally asked, who wants to become President of the Philippines someday? Some guy from Antipolo put his hand. So I said, you come here and sit beside me. And you listen and you take notes. That's the way we should train the young people.
But Mr. President, when we look back, if you look back to your time, no, is there any one thing that you regret not having done when you were president?
Oh, of course, there are many things undone because you cannot do too much in 6 years. I'm not saying that I should have been extended or I should have been re-elected.
Because there was a controversy then, no? That,
But what I batted for was constitutional amendment so that we would shift to the parliamentary system which favored more people equality. Whether or not you belong to a dynasty or you don't, common, ordinary people have a bigger kind of opportunity to go up.
But it seems like pushing for constitutional reform, charter change to pursue a federal and parliamentary system is very difficult to achieve because even President Arroyo, that was one of her platforms in 2004, and that was one of the things she failed to achieve.
At this time, it might be still difficult because at the very top leadership is not being favored, unlike during our time, no? But you see, this business of the BBL, which you brought up, really leads to a parliamentary system and then eventually federalism, because it is batting for greater autonomy on the part of the regions.
Yeah, but isn't it a roundabout, sir, that it started the
Yes. We should have started it for all regions.
That's right.
In our 87 Constitution, 2 regions, ARMM and Cordillera,
Cordillera, administrative.
should have been autonomous, but the Cordilleras rejected in the plebiscite the law that provided for the autonomous region in the Cordilleras. Anyway, the point here in this discussion is being an archipelago of 1,000 or 7,107 islands during high tide and more during low tide. We really need to decentralize, devolve, deregulate, and democratize our development.
Completely agree.
By the way, here in Cebu, you must save water because water is going to be more valuable than oil later on. This is the big subject there in Paris in regard to climate change.
Water and air. So, going back, sir, but are you supporting a candidate for president who promises charter change?
I will vote.
Yeah.
But at this point, it's too early
Too early.
to be talking about who is your candidate.
So we'll talk about it when the ballots have been printed.
No, you can talk about it in the next gap.
But the next gap will be next week because unfortunately our time is up. We had President Ramos tonight, and it's been a very interesting discussion from the burning issues of the day, our presidential candidates, BBL, the West Philippine Sea, foreign policy, the different issues that face us, Philippines with looking back at Philippines 2000. But we will still have President Ramos next week in our part 2 for this episode. For now, this has been Mike Lopez, and you were watching Open Mic. Good night and Godspeed.